So I'm working on the bind off edge for a shawl here that is using a Picot border, and you're going to do this by casting on a couple of stitches and then binding off those stitches in succession. So this is going to use the cable cast on, which is a skill that I just learned. It's fairly easy. You can also use the knitted cast on to do it. So let's take a look at this here. Okay, so if you're just starting out at the very beginning of the row, just simply knit one stitch. So you've got one over here on the right hand needle. I'm kind of partway through, but it's the same skill throughout. So you just knit the one, and then to do the cable cast on, you're going to stick your right hand needle in between the first and second stitches on the left hand needle. So rather than going through a stitch, you're going to go in between them and knit one. So that's the cable cast on. To do this picot edge, you're going to put the stitch back on the left hand needle. Okay, so this is the stitch that was there. This was the first stitch. Now you have this brand new stitch here. You're going to cast on one more time. So where you went, this is the first stitch, this is the second. So we went through here, and then we put that stitch on the needle. Now we're going to go in between the brand new stitch and the first stitch and cast a second one on. Okay, so we've created two new stitches here, and now we're going to bind off 4. So we knit the one, and then take that stitch up and over. We knit 2, and then we take that stitch up and over, and we knit the third. Bind that off by taking that stitch up and over, and then now we bind off another stitch here along the shawl edge to get us one step further in the shawl. So you can also do this, I said, by using the knitted cast on, which is by knitting a stitch, placing that on the left needle, and then knitting that stitch and placing the second stitch on the needle. So you have the same 3 stitch kind of burst, and you'll just bind those stitches off. So bind the 4 stitches. Let those 2 slide off here. Continue working in the cable cast on. So I'm sticking my right needle between these first and second stitches on the border of my shawl, knitting 1, and then we're going to transfer that onto the left needle, and then in between those 2 stitches, I'm going to make a second. Okay, so where am I? Now that we've created those 2 stitches, now we're doing the bind off. So it's a knitted bind off, so knit a stitch, and then now I'm going to take the first stitch on the right hand needle up and over. So now there's 1 stitch on that needle, knit, the first stitch up and over again, knit a 3rd stitch, bind off, and then knit a 4th stitch and bind off. So you see, by creating those stitches and then binding them off, you get these little peaks here along the edge of your shawl for a soft, dainty little picot edge.